After my accident, Gavin locked up his race car, dyed his hair black, quit smoking. From a wild rake, he turned into a responsible and caring boss. He devoted himself to me, taking care of me. Everyone said he loved me to the core. Until our wedding, a girl rushed out and insulted me, calling me a slut. Don't think I don't know. You were already defiled when you were kidnapped. How dare you still have the face to get married? The girl was none other than Gavin's former assistant, who had been fired in front of me. The wedding was already a big event, attended by all the big shots in town, as well as many media outlets. Her outburst caused a commotion. Gavin beside me suddenly turned cold. Who let her in? Get her out right now. He turned to me, holding my shoulder, under the spotlight, with a hidden anxiety in his deep eyes. Rachel, don't listen to her nonsense. Let's continue for now. We'll deal with the rest after the wedding, okay? It was too late. The situation was already out of control. The flashlights flickered wildly in the audience. The girl was still trying to break free from the security's grasp. Rachel, you don't deserve to wear this wedding ring. People whispered among themselves. Rachel was only injured by the kidnapper, not defiled. I never believed it. How can one stay pure after being kidnapped by a man for a day and a night? If it weren't for our family suppressing the news back then, how could this have been kept hidden until today? Gavin seemed to be holding Rachel up on the surface, but who knows how disgusted he might be with her in private. Of course, after such an incident, which man wouldn't feel disgusted? This wedding, I'm afraid, can't go on even if we tried to force it. Countless astonished, curious, scrutinizing, excited, sympathetic eyes converged on me from all directions, whispering cruel words that pierced me like poisoned blades. At first, Gavin's grandfather smiled forcefully on the main seat, trying to reassure the guests, but eventually, he couldn't bear it and fainted. Amid the gasps, the wedding was forced to be interrupted. The nightmare from 4 years ago, like an unshakable ghost, haunted us again. My and Gavin's lives were completely altered after that. Gavin and I were childhood sweethearts. The young Gavin, from a good background, good looks, and a wild spirit, appeared dominating on the racetrack. Anyone who saw us together would think we were not a match. But he only became a gentle giant in front of me. He, who couldn't sit still, would obediently sit in my dance studio, watching me practice through a glass window, full of admiration and fascination. His eyes were always filled with appreciation and intoxication. Sometimes when his team members wanted to see him, they would jokingly say they wanted to see their sister-in-law. He would bluntly scold them away. Get lost. Rachel is the purest girl in the world. Don't scare her. The first time he showed up in front of me with red hair, I couldn't help showing a look of unfamiliarity, and he panicked. A figure squatting in front of me, insisting I touch it, trying to reassure me that he was still himself. Rachel, don't look at me with such a strange gaze. If you don't like it, I'll change it back right away, okay? His red hair made his skin even paler, and his people-pleasing smile seemed particularly bright. Every time he won a race, he would shout my name loudly in front of the cameras, making sure the whole world knew of his favoritism towards me. In the end, my parents also trusted him greatly. Though Gavin was wild in nature, he was uniquely good to Rachel. Our family had to be the one to bring Rachel home. Only she could control this kid. In everyone's eyes, we were supposed to have a great future together. But it was all interrupted by that accident. 4 years ago, I was kidnapped for a day and night. When I was rescued, my once pristine white dance dress was now dirty and stained with blood. Somehow, that scene was captured by someone, and the photos leaked out. People were excited like sharks smelling blood in the water. The news of the kidnapping spread like wildfire. Everyone was sharing that photo, and some even claimed to have a video. I watched the video. The girl's screams were heartbreaking. I couldn't bear to watch. Indeed, being an award-winning dancer, she was so flexible, able to contort into any position. The perpetrator was shot on the spot when he became emotionally volatile during the kidnapping. This kidnapping incident was ultimately classified as random harm by a lunatic. Nobody could explain what really happened during my abduction. In the end, our two family found familiar media outlets and sealed every possible leak to suppress the news. When Gavin arrived, I had just finished surgery. I had never seen him so distraught. He knelt beside my bed, a man who was always confident and energetic, but now hunched over, tears streaming down his red eyes onto my hand. Rachel, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I didn't protect you well enough. After that, he dyed his hair black, quit smoking, locked up his race car, put on a suit, and cut off all ties with his past circle. For 4 years, Gavin had been overly cautious and protective of me, To the point of obsession. He installed the best security system. Whenever I went out, no matter how busy his company was, he would always accompany me personally. He would meticulously plan out my outings, eliminating any potential dangers. It was as if, with one misstep, I would be blown away by the wind, broken by the rain. Everyone said he had transformed for me, loved me to the core. My parents also sighed in relief, grateful that Gavin was taking care of me so devotedly. And now, this disruption at the wedding shattered all the peace. Once again, I was pushed to the forefront of scandal. After his grandfather's condition had stabilized after resuscitation, he immediately called for Gavin. Cancel the wedding, it must be cancelled. I'm not a traditional person. When Rachel first encountered troubles, we could still keep the news under wraps. I was willing to turn a blind eye. Now that it has become public knowledge, and you still want to marry her, it would be a disgrace to our family. Gavin immediately intervened. It's not Rachel's fault. I can't call off the wedding. An immediate sound of a slap rang out. Gavin's grandfather only had this one grandson, and Gavin had lost his parents at a young age. He had been doted on by his grandfather, which was probably the first time Gavin had been struck. In the ward, after a few seconds of silence, Gavin remained obstinate, word by word. Grandpa, I will never divorce. These were all relayed to me by my best friend, Coco. When the situation began to get chaotic, my mom hurriedly brought me back home for protection, confiscated my phone and computer, fearing that I might hear unpleasant things. I felt helpless. Even though I am now the head of a branch office, in my mother's eyes, I will always be the little girl who needs protection. I had to ask Coco to come see me under the guise of delivering documents, giving me a chance to assess the situation. Coco looked at me carefully. Rachel, are you okay? Coco had always said that I was too calm and composed, always poised and peaceful. Her. It was something she couldn't quite figure out. Those who didn't know me well, they might find it a bit fake. After signing the last document, I shook my head. I'm fine. Performing on stage requires full emotions, but in real life, emotions are the most useless thing, only causing distraction. Grandpa's thoughts are conservative, not something that can change overnight. There's no need to argue pointlessly. What I'm thinking about is something else. Coco, there are some things I want to verify. I can't show myself right now. Can you help me, please? I asked Coco to investigate the girl who caused the trouble at the wedding. I remembered meeting her 2 years ago. I faintly remembered her name was Mandy, and at that time, she was Gavin's assistant, because I had been fired. On the day when I could finally stand on my legs again, Gavin was close to tears out of joy, giving bonuses to the entire company to celebrate. Many people came to congratulate and bless me, creating a joyful atmosphere throughout the company. That was when Mandy came over. She first complimented me with a smile. You're Rachel. I've seen you in dance competitions before. You're so good. Then, seeming innocently, she asked, but you can never dance again, right? My smile froze on my face, and I instinctively clenched my fists. She didn't seem to notice my expression, and asked again, don't you think you're now a burden to Gavin? Before I could react, Gavin blocked her in front of me, reprimanding her sternly. If you can't speak well, then be quiet. Go to HR and resign, you're fired. Mandy had a temper too. She glared at me, then turned and ran off. At that time, I was puzzled. The role of a CEO's assistant requires finesse in speech and demeanor. Why would such a tactless girl be put in that position? But Gavin's decisive action in drawing a line made me not think much about it, thinking that the matter was settled. Yet, at the wedding, the position where Mandy stood up was clearly within the area reserved for the company's executives. Until the matter is clarified, I will not blindly marry Gavin seeking refuge. Coco mobilized many resources, but couldn't find Mandy, not just her. With the commotion at the wedding being so significant at this moment, my parents, the hotel, the media, the police, many people were looking for Mandy, but she seemed to have disappeared into thin air. No news at all. Even the hotel surveillance mysteriously vanished. Coco took a deep breath, sat in front of me, looking very serious. Rachel, I've gathered some information after a lot of effort, but, Rachel, you must be prepared. Coco pulled out an old photo. It was a racing driver holding a helmet. The moment I saw that face, my heart clenched suddenly. It was the same person who kidnapped me back then. Coco showed me another group photo. And this was 5 years ago, a photo of Gavin's racing team. She pointed to an inconspicuous figure in the corner. Mandy was right here. At that age, Mandy had her hair tied in a ponytail, looking somewhat green, wearing the uniform of a repair shop, gazing admiringly at Gavin in the center of the crowd. her admiration was evident to anyone. Mandy was initially a general helper in Gavin's racing team, and everyone in the team knew that she was crazy about Gavin, jokingly referring to her as Gavin's fan. But Gavin only had eyes for you. So no one took her seriously. 4 years ago, a driver from another racing team, who later kidnapped you, insulted Gavin. It was normal banter between competitors. Gavin didn't take it seriously, but Mandy went up and slapped the person. This angered the person, and he wanted to ruin her career. Gavin, standing up for Mandy, proposed a race and deliberately caused an accident during the race to harm the person. This made the person hold a deep grudge against Gavin and unable to take revenge on him, which led to him kidnapping you. Coco's voice rose with anger as she spoke. No wonder Gavin feels so guilty. In the end, it was he who caused you harm. And even after all that, he still kept Mandy by his side. What was he thinking? No one knows. The truth finally unfolded. No wonder he felt so guilty. No wonder he disbanded his beloved racing team so quickly and severed ties with his old friends. I had to take several deep breaths to suppress the suffocating pain in my chest. I had always been devoted to my dancing since a young age, either rehearsing or competing, never stepping into Gavin's inner circle. Only today do I realize my unwarranted misfortune, my years of pain and suffering, my abandoned path of dance. All of it was because Gavin played the hero for Mandy. I suddenly remembered the young Gavin, riding a motorcycle, with a bright smile, handing me a pink helmet specially prepared for me, saying he wanted to take me to see the sunset. Back then, he enjoyed excitement and noise, and I always cautiously assessed the probability of risks, unwilling to easily participate. Gavin would mock me for being timid, and I would earnestly tell him that the thrill of street racing wasn't worth the risk. In the end, Gavin could only helplessly and indulgently assure me. Don't worry, Rachel, as long as I'm alive, I won't let a single hair on your head be harmed. His confident and playful demeanor vivid in my memory. Yet, in the end, the greatest harm I've ever suffered in my life was by his doing. Perhaps, because my face looked so grim. Coco held my hand, already with a hint of tears in her voice. Rachel, what do we do now? I hadn't had time to answer before Gavin's timely phone call came through. I paused and picked up the phone. On the other end, Gavin seemed just finished with work, his voice tired yet gentle. Rachel, Grandpa agreed not to cancel the engagement. I was afraid you would be upset. So I wanted to tell you right away, he said. These few days, you just stay at home. I will take care of all the problems. Don't worry, okay? I pretended to be calm and just replied with a simple okay. Gavin asked about my condition, reminded me to stay at home and rest well, and then hung up the phone. Through our conversation, I became more and more composed. By the time this 3-minute conversation ended, I had hidden away all my emotions. Coco's worried expression turned somewhat surprised. Rachel, are you okay? Your face was as white as paper just now. You almost scared me to death. I'm fine. Crying over spilled milk won't help. So it's better to think about the next steps. When I was explicitly informed that I could never dance again, I was truly heartbroken for a long time. But when I could sit in a wheelchair, I started spending every day at the company, studying and trying to take over some small projects. Keep moving forward. Only by moving forward can one avoid being dragged into the abyss by the past. As far as I'm concerned, Gavin is already out of the picture, but there are too many cooperation projects between our two families, and the interests are too deep for Gavin's infidelity. I still need to obtain concrete evidence. I asked Coco, any news on Mandy's whereabouts? None, Coco said, sounding frustrated. I wasn't surprised. To be able to disappear to this extent. She wasn't hiding. She was being hidden. And the only person capable of such a feat could be Gavin. So, what do we do? I thought for a moment and decided to wait. If Mandy were to show up at the wedding, it would mean that she didn't want to hide, and would definitely find another way to resurface. I didn't have to wait long. The next day, someone coincidentally exposed Mandy's account online. She turned out to be a moderately popular love blogger. Her account had been documenting her unabashed love from an early age. She caught Gavin's eye on the racetrack and joined his team. Every time Gavin raced, she was there cheering him on. Every time he won, she celebrated with the team excitedly. Later on, Mandy seemed to have succeeded in winning his love. During the days when I thought Gavin was on business trips, he was rock climbing, scuba diving, and skydiving with Mandy, indulging in various thrilling activities under the blue skies and blue ocean. Unlike when he was with me, cautious and careful, with Mandy, Gavin was still the reckless youth he used to be. I could feel his emotions from his light touch and casual tone, relaxed, carefree, and at ease. In the latest video she posted, Mandy, tears in her eyes, looked resolute and brave. The caption read, "Everyone needs to be brave at least once in their life. I've decided to elope." I sent the account a coffee shop address and identified myself. Before long, Mandy indeed showed up. Despite her grim situation now, she smiled when she saw me, revealing a slightly mischievous frown. "Rachel, nice to see you again. How do you like the wedding gift I sent you?" Surprised, her triumphant posture was so obvious. Indeed, she ruined my wedding, dragged me into a media storm, paid no price, and was still being protected by Gavin. She had indeed won. She sat down confidently in front of me, head held high with a hint of pity. "You must have something to ask me, so go ahead." I remained expressionless and asked her straight away, "Was Gavin with you the day I was kidnapped 4 years ago?" When I watched Mandy's videos, I had noticed this question. On the day I had the accident, she left the country without any warning, and didn't return until a year later when everything had calmed down. She came back in a hurry, like incriminating evidence that had been hidden away. A smile slowly spread across Mandy's face. "You guessed it, but can you handle the truth?" My expression remained unchanged, but I unconsciously tightened my grip on the cup in my hand. "Go ahead." Perhaps my appearance was too deceiving. Or maybe she had heard from Gavin that I was too weak. Mandy showed no caution towards me at all. She couldn't wait to flaunt all the past events and truths to me. Leaving the coffee shop, I drove back home very slowly. Along the way, I kept the windows open, letting the cool night breeze blow on my face, trying to calm myself down and stay alert. In the recording, Mandy's voice carried a hint of pride. She talked about how Gavin had always protected her, stood up for her, and no one had ever treated her so well in her life. "You have no idea how happy I was, how much I liked him," Mandy said, her voice filled with sweetness. So that day, I invited him for a drink and gave myself to him. And by some twist of fate, we managed to escape that lunatic, leaving you as the scapegoat. Isn't it funny? Mandy's tone turned bitter. "Rachel, when I gave myself to him it was my first time. And then you, what gave you the right to morally blackmail him for a lifetime, just because you got a little hurt?" She continued, "You two are not even in the same world. A fragile, obedient girl like you. Can you go crazy and wild with him? All he gets from being with you is constraint." Pressing the gas pedal, I felt a dull ache in my knee. I've always been someone who doesn't like to look back. Even my therapist advised me not to dwell on the nightmare-like day. After the incident, I spent a long time cooperating with the treatment, hoping to recover and get back on stage. But today, the details of that day became clearer in my mind. I remember being smothered unconscious in a matter of seconds. In a daze, I recall the killer making phone calls incessantly, laughing and crying, going from night to morning, growing more hysterical by the minute. As the sound of sirens drew closer, the killer's emotions completely unraveled. He dropped the phone, grabbed a steel pipe, and viciously smashed my knee. That day, Gavin and I had planned to go see a movie. He stood me up. He was too busy basking in Mandy's admiration, indulging in the excitement of her offer, and missed the chance to save me. Upon returning home, I saw lights on and a large group of people scrambling around, looking for something. Spotting me, Gavin's eyes lit up, and he rushed towards me, enveloping me in his arms. "Rachel, as long as you're okay, that's all that matters. Promise me, don't ever disappear on me again, okay?" I could feel the tremble in his voice. Over the years, Gavin had grown more composed, rarely showing any extreme emotions, but that day, the way he rushed to my side, filled with concern and nervousness, was the same as now. Ironically, according to Mandy's timeline, at that moment, Gavin might have just gotten out of her bed. I calmly pushed Gavin away, looking at his familiar yet unfamiliar face, feeling disgusted. Sensing my unease, Gavin grew uneasy, his dark eyebrows furrowing. "Rachel, what's wrong?" Mockingly, I raised my lips and took a few steps back, creating distance. "Gavin, where were you on the day I got hurt 4 years ago?" In a brief moment of shock, Gavin's panic was palpable. I was always gentle, but that day was probably the first time in all these years that I spoke to Gavin in a quarrelsome tone. "After doing something like that, how can you have the face to propose to me?" He turned pale. In vain, he tried to explain that he was drunk, regretted it as soon as he sobered up, and immediately sent Mandy out of the country. I pressed on, "And what happened after that? Did you bring her back a year later, because you got drunk again?" "I'm sorry, Rachel, it's my fault," Gavin said, his expression pained, his fingers clutching my shoulder tensely, as if he couldn't bear it anymore. "Because I never forgot." He closed his eyes and finally revealed his true feelings. "I never forgot how you looked when you were hurt. How you struggled with rehabilitation. Every minute I spent with you. I felt guilty enough to want to kill myself. Every time I think about it, I hate that time can't turn back. Why I didn't die on the racetrack? Why didn't he just crash into me? Why did he have to hurt you? Struggling, Gavin explained to me, Rachel, please believe me. I was just in so much pain. Bringing Mandy back was just to get back at her. I never touched her again, Remembering Mandy's words, I spoke slowly. But she's the only one who knows your secret. Who can go wild and crazy with you. With her, you can finally relax and take a breather. It struck me as absurd that I was the one with a broken leg. Shattered dreams. Yet you were the one suffering so much that you had to cheat to relieve the pressure. Gavin, aren't you too weak? Ignoring my words, Gavin's dark eyes remained fixed on me, stubbornly pleading. Rachel, I'll send Mandy away. We'll have a grander wedding. Just forgive me this once, okay? I looked at him coldly. You should know, it's not possible. The engagement is off, and I will make you and Mandy pay back the debts you owe. I didn't want to engage in meaningless entanglements anymore. So I turned to leave. And the moment we brushed past each other, Gavin suddenly grabbed my wrist, ignoring my struggles, and forcibly lifted me off the ground. The polite mask was torn off in that instant. The aggressiveness between his brows seemed to revert back to that fiercely competitive young racing driver on the track. In that moment, I sadly realized that Gavin was never really the right fit for me. It was just that he appeared too early. 18 age, when I didn't yet understand the essence of love. Gavin was by my side, comforting me when I cried, making me laugh, not hiding his passionate affection for me, offering everything he had. At that time, it was difficult for me to objectively analyze whether he could be a good match for me. He carried me into the bedroom and placed me on the bed, smiling in a somewhat sickly manner. Rachel, don't you understand yet? You can only marry me now. With rumors spreading about you and matters escalating online, it's not in your favor to call off the engagement at this point. People are saying terrible things, and if you call off the wedding now, it won't benefit you or your family. I knew what he meant. After the scene Mandy caused, calling off the engagement now would make people think I had been abandoned. They would say, look, her fiancé doesn't want her. She must have been violated. At this point, the best solution is to get married. Just like those men who cheat, no matter how big the scandal, once the wife firmly stands by his side, outsiders won't have much to say. I looked at him quietly. Are you threatening me? Gavin didn't answer. He just moved my long hair behind my ear, his tone softening slightly. Rachel, listen to me. You can be angry, hit me, curse me, tell me to go die, seek revenge in any way you want, but our wedding will go on as planned. Right now, I am the only one who can help you. As a publicly traded company, public relations affect stock prices. I can't make decisions based solely on personal feelings. I closed my eyes. You go ahead. I need to discuss this with my parents alone. I told my parents everything. My mother burst into tears, wanting to call Gavin and scold him right away. It took me a while to comfort her before she calmed down. My father was trembling with anger. This Gavin, I really misjudged him. However, after the initial excitement settled down, they fell into a long silence. After a moment, they exchanged a worried look. My mother said sadly, Rachel, what Gavin said is true. If you call off the engagement now, how will you be able to stand on your own in the future? I remained silent for a while, then turned to my father. Dad, do you also feel the same way? My father sighed. There really isn't any other way out now. Here's what we'll do. You get married first, then publicly declare together that the other woman was delusional and caused a scene at your wedding. I believe Gavin will cooperate. After a few years, everyone will gradually forget about this, and you can quietly get a divorce without any impact. The atmosphere in the room was heavy, as if doomsday had arrived. Everyone told me that the only path in front of me was to turn a blind eye and marry Gavin. It all suddenly felt absurd to me. Mom, Dad, I told you about this because our families have business cooperations, and I wanted us to be prepared in advance to minimize the impact on the company. As for the rest, you don't need to worry. I decided to address this live. I made this decision after spending several hours checking the online public opinion trends. The conclusion was clear. I was quite detested. From the videos Mandy posted, it was evident that she had a bold and straightforward personality, which was quite popular, later, causing a scene at the wedding. While some people criticized her, others felt that she was brave in love and hate. A perfect match for the real Gavin. On the few online photos circulating of me, dressed in a pure white ballet outfit, I appeared delicate and quiet, like a small white flower. Mandy's fans believed that Gavin agreed to marry me because I morally blackmailed him with the traumas I had experienced. forcing the responsible Gavin to reluctantly abandon Mandy. Rachel is so disgusting, always playing the pitiful victim, using moral blackmail. Only women can see through her real nature, right? I don't blame the netizens for their misunderstandings. I don't like to expose my private life to the public. Hardly any evidence can be found online of me together with Gavin. On Mandy's account, the interactions between her and Gavin looked every bit like a couple in love. Coco was very angry. How can people speak so wildly without knowing the truth? Rachel, you have all the childhood photos, videos with Gavin, why not share them and shut those rumors down? I handed her a glass of water and couldn't help but smile wryly. Let it be. It's starting to look like two women fighting over Gavin. Quite nauseating. People who need to be fought over. Are they worth it anyway? Gavin is not worth caring about. What really made me concerned and decide to respond was another aspect: discussions about whether I had been violated. I don't know why, but this issue always seems to gather attention. Under previous news reports of young girls being murdered, there were always speculations. Were they violated before they were killed? What kind of violation could it be? Even if the family declares there wasn't any, or says the deceased is at peace now, please don't pay too much attention. Some people couldn't help but secretly speculate. I am not only alive, but also with a tarnished reputation, making discussions about me even more unabashed. Rachel stated that the kidnapper was disfigured in the racing accident and couldn't violate Rachel. It's really absurd. They can make up anything. She must have been violated. That's why she insists on holding on to Gavin. Who else would want her? If it's not about the money, I can accept it too. Some took pleasure in my misfortune, others used vulgar language, while some sympathized with pity. But no matter what kind of reaction, I didn't want to see it. Only those who don't trust themselves seek sympathy from others. I just want to confront it head on, without consulting anyone. I went live directly. As soon as the viewers realized it was me, the live stream room quickly filled up. I briefly explained the actual situation of my kidnapping. Netizens immediately questioned, what evidence do you have to prove your innocence? At the very least, you should have hospital records. What proof? They've been in a normal relationship these years. They must have been intimate. What can be found out? Just ask Gavin to come out and speak. That will solve it. For his image, he will obviously defend his fiancé. What can his words prove? As expected, self-justification was never ending. The testimony of the parties involved didn't seem to matter. I have stated the facts, and as for how you view me, I don't care. Netizens began mocking again. If you don't care, why explain live? Just stay hidden behind Gavin. I glanced through, ignored the comments, and got to the point. I hosted this live stream today to express my stance. Pausing for a moment, I slowly began to speak. I would rather be violated than have a broken leg. This sentence fell like a nuclear bomb. After a brief silence, the barrage filled the entire screen madly. What is she saying? Rachel said she would rather be violated. My phone kept buzzing, and Coco rushed in from outside, mouthing words to me with a look of despair. Rachel, you're out of your mind. I calmly watched the barrage swirling on the screen. Specific situations require specific responses, and I must admit that what I said was quite extreme. But if you want people to hear what you have to say, you have to speak boldly. If you want to break stereotypes, you need to shock people with reality. As for the scale and details, once they are taken seriously, they will naturally be further discussed. I ignored the screen full of astonishment, and continued speaking calmly. Hymen rupture is a minor injury that causes brief level 3 pain and generally does not require treatment. A double knee shattering bone fracture, on the other hand, causes level 10 pain, enough to make someone pass out from the pain, along with 3 major surgeries over 2 years, legs reinforced with 4 steel plates, post-operative rejection episodes, numerous difficult rehabilitations, and the painful uncertainty of the future ahead. Ignoring the so-called meanings of chastity and purity artificially assigned to the hymen, I want you to choose. Which type of injury would you choose to endure? 3 years ago, when I first woke up, I knew there was a gossip storm centered around my chastity. By then, doctors had already told me that I could no longer dance. I lay on the hospital bed, squeezing my weak legs, staring straight at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face. From childhood to adulthood, my life had steadily progressed under my control. That was the first time I felt utterly hopeless. I thought to myself, I wish it were true. If I were only violated and not have a broken leg, that would be better. In 2 days, I was supposed to participate in the Varna International Ballet Competition. It was the highest hall of dreams for all dancers. I had devoted countless hours and sweat to this dream, for hundreds of days and nights. I repeated jumps and turns in front of the mirror over and over again, just to imprint the most perfect movements into my muscle memory. In the comprehensive evaluation, before the competition, I was the most highly regarded candidate for the championship. I had even prepared my competition costume, hanging under special lights in the wardrobe, shining brightly. But I would never have the opportunity to wear it again. It was within reach. I was forever shut out of the Hall of Dreams. I didn't understand. How could they think I cared about chastity compared to dreams and health? Being violated is more about mental humiliation. I fully believed my willpower was strong enough to heal such wounds. But my leg was truly broken, and I couldn't use my will to make the bones heal, to stand up again, and return to the stage. Moreover, whether I was chaste or not was not for others to judge. I hope everyone understands that in the kidnapping incident, I am no one's fiancé, and I don't owe anyone an explanation. I only have one identity, and that is a victim. Even if I were really violated, I might be fearful, regretful, and even have lingering shadows. But one thing is certain, I would not feel any shame. It is you who are bored and shameless, deriving pleasure from stepping on the wounds of victims. The one who lacks clarity is not me, it's you. She's already suffered enough as a victim. So why should she be criticized by others? Rachel is right, be open-minded, and if there is no other violent behavior, this is just a minor injury. These sober voices have always existed, but there are too many spectators, and a few words are quickly drowned out. After I took the initiative to speak out, they were greatly encouraged and gradually occupied a portion of the comments. But some people were touched on a sensitive nerve and started cursing more vigorously, saying I had no shame. It's okay. This is just the beginning. I clicked on an image with a logo. It depicted a solemn balance symbol with lush branches, resembling a shelter that could shield from wind and rain. Some people may recognize this logo. Indeed, someone in the comments recognized it. Green Shoots Legal Aid, a completely free organization that specializes in helping disabled people claim compensation. This organization is not related to Rachel, right? This agency was established by me. Over the years of running the company, I have accumulated significant resources and connections. During my treatment, I met some injured workers who couldn't get proper compensation. I promoted a positive company image in a timely manner. Our family business is a socially responsible one, and at my suggestion, we established a public assistance team, doing what we could to help. There was a moment of silence in the comments. Some who had just been cursing suddenly felt a bit embarrassed. In the live broadcast room, only a few people were still questioning my intentions. Looking at the camera, I announced, through this incident, I realized that there are people who find it difficult to seek justice. So I have decided to add online violence legal assistance to Green Shoots. We'll start with my case, the rumor spreaders, the online abusers. Everything has been well documented in the past few days. Our legal team is very professional and efficient, with plenty of time and effort to not let any defendant slip through the cracks. I believe that soon, you will each receive a lawyer's letter. I smiled at the camera. Please pay attention to it. This is where reason and force come together. The few negative comments left in the live broadcast room disappeared completely. The public opinion was successfully reversed. After the live stream ended, those who spread rumors and insulted me seemed to have disappeared overnight, leaving no trace behind. I received some private messages apologizing, saying they had deleted all their negative comments and hoped I wouldn't hold it against them. Some messages were seeking advice or confiding in me. I cried when watching your live stream. I've been violated before too, but my parents were afraid it would tarnish my reputation, so I was never allowed to speak up. Now seeing that scumbag living happily with a family, I deeply regret not reporting it back then. I used to have nightmares often when I just got married. When I finally confided in my husband about being violated, he felt so hurt, believing that I owed him something. Most importantly, later on, I started feeling unclean myself. These years, I have always felt inferior to him and have been trying hard to make up for it. I admire your courage in speaking up, and I truly appreciate you for helping me understand that I am not the one in the wrong. There are so many people enduring the humiliation of being called whores. Many people's living environments do not support them to be brave, so they can only swallow their pain and confusion. I understand their silence, but in order to break this cycle, someone has to speak up first. I don't regret making this decision. The day after the live stream ended, the footage of Mandy and me at the coffee shop where Rachel was kidnapped was timely released. It turns out that it was those two scumbags who were responsible for Rachel's abduction. Mandy was so shameless. Not only was she unapologetic, but she even had the audacity to try to steal a marriage. Gavin was despicable too. I used to be moved by his passionate demeanor. Mandy's account had been completely taken over. Every page was filled with insults directed at her. but she was oblivious to it, because she had already been detained. On the day of the wedding, after Mandy said, "You don't deserve to wear this ring," she snatched my ring from the flower girl's hand. Compared to her shocking words, no one present cared about such a small incident. From the recovered surveillance footage, it was seen that when Mandy left, she casually tossed the ring aside. The diamond ring traced a dazzling arc through the air. She probably thought this action resembled something out of a drama, very chic and beautiful. Just a ring, nothing more than a prop in her grand love affair. The ring was worth 3 million. Stripped of the romance of fighting for love, all that was left was a bold theft of a substantial sum of public and private property. When Mandy and I pointed her out at the police station, Mandy looked incredulous. "Why? You never cared about how much I spent before. It's just a ring, and you want me to go to jail." She wasn't wrong. If the truth hadn't been exposed, Gavin would have hidden her away again. Just a ring, nothing significant to Gavin. But she forgot a sad fact, that the power to determine her fate was not in her hands. Now that Gavin could no longer manipulate me with public opinion, he was left with no choice but to sincerely plead his case. "Rachel, don't listen to her. Money is the least important thing. I'm generous with everyone in the team. That doesn't prove anything." Mandy stared at Gavin in bewilderment, as if she didn't recognize him. Suddenly, she turned to me, accusatory. "It's you. It's you who pressured him, right? You despicable person. Pretending to be innocent while being so malicious." I sighed lightly. "I can point fingers on my own. Gavin's presence here is entirely his choice." Mandy still couldn't understand. She thought love was Gavin buying her pretty clothes, taking her out, showing her unseen worlds. But for the wealthy, as long as it provides some emotional value, those were just spontaneous actions. Her whole being was invested in this affair. Their sacrifices were not the same. Mandy couldn't accept the shattering of her perfect image of Gavin, shaking her head in denial. "No, impossible. He and I are kindred souls. How could he really like you? It must be you. It's you. I found it somewhat amusing. As a fellow woman, you insult me as a whore, and yet show leniency towards Gavin. It's him who has let you down, yet you're afraid to blame him, only pointing fingers at me. Mandy, are you placing your courage in the wrong place?" After a long pause, Mandy looked up at me with burning hatred and anticipation, and then she whispered, "Rachel, I misjudged you. You're powerful." She lowered her voice. "You're so powerful, you won't just go after me, will you?" I understood the resentment and expectation in Mandy's intense gaze. Leaning in and softly replied, "Rest assured, I won't spare him either." Mandy nodded, then suddenly chuckled. "I'm looking forward to it." Mandy and those who spread rumors received their just punishments. But when it all boils down, the one I find hardest to forgive is still Gavin. Gavin still wanted to salvage our engagement. All the projects we collaborated on, he withdrew from without compensation, giving up the expected profits, wasting the significant capital and technical investments from the early stages. For a moment, the other shareholders of their company were shocked and angry, and his grandfather was hospitalized due to anger. When Gavin told me about this, he was deeply emotional. "Rachel, I withdrew from every project. I'll give you whatever you want." How could he be so self-absorbed? Even if he didn't withdraw, the stocks were already almost hitting the limit drop. Amidst the turmoil stirred up at the wedding, both Gavin and I, along with our respective corporate entities, gained significant attention. Some people scrutinized our handling of the situation during the event. They noticed that even during the most intense days of public scrutiny, the projects I was responsible for continued smoothly. On the day the wedding was interrupted, I even signed some documents and approved funding. Meanwhile, Gavin was in a state of neglect, either indulging in alcohol-induced reckless driving as an outlet, or red-eyed outside my house begging for forgiveness. Many believed this person in power was emotionally unstable, essentially an immature child. How could investors trust him? Furthermore, after my live stream, our company's image experienced a significant boost, causing a surge in stock prices. Whether it was shareholders or partners, they clearly leaned towards our company. I didn't need to be led by Gavin. Still, I expressed my gratitude and didn't reject Gavin's goodwill. I'm not Gavin. I'm not stubborn. I won't decline this dual safeguard. Our last meeting was when their company was on the brink of bankruptcy, facing a crisis. He still had the heart to come find me. Standing outside my house, he looked worn out. "Rachel, I've given you everything. Please forgive me this once, okay?" All I did was hand him a few boxes. They were all the gifts Gavin had given me over the years. I was contemplating whether to return them, or just let him take them. Since he had the time to come all the way here, it saved me from the trouble. Gavin refused to take the boxes. "Don't be like this, please. I've loved you for over a decade. Made this one mistake, can't you forgive me? I looked at him indifferently, without any emotional response. Gavin, don't tell me you love me anymore. You've convinced yourself of that. You don't love me, you just like to play the hero. It's not wrong to want to be a hero, but the right way to do it is to make yourself strong enough to protect anyone, instead of like you, finding someone who looks weak enough to stand by your side and highlight you. It's actually me who needs to reflect on my sharp words, not giving him any dignity. My biggest mistake in life was knowing that you were reckless and impulsive, yet I still chose you and paid a huge price for it. Thinking of the stage that has permanently closed, I can now be calm. At this point, I can forgive my youthful ignorance, but I have no reason not to correct this wrong decision of yours. Instead of being all lovey-dovey here, why not worry more about how to live and pay off debts after going bankrupt? Gavin looked at me in disbelief, as if meeting me for the first time. His body seemed to be tortured by my words, unable to stop shaking. He left in a sorry state, staggering, no longer daring to look into my eyes. The gifts were still left behind. When I had them thrown out, some things fell out and broke. Various crystal balls with dreamy ballet dancers inside, and glass domes covering eternal roses untainted by dust. All delicate, beautiful, and fragile things. Just like how Gavin saw me. But he got it wrong. I was never the princess in the crystal ball, or the rose under the glass dome. That one blow may have broken my leg, shattered my dreams of dancing, and wasted over 10 years of effort. But my life is not over. The years of perseverance and hard work have honed not just my dancing skills, but also my character. I am used to persistence, overcoming obstacles, and taking life seriously. Dance was the first journey of my life. I am the future. I will have countless new journeys ahead. My life does not end here.